Well, as discussions continue on the constitutionality of Chief Justice David Maraga's advice to President Uhuru Kenyatta, it is now emerging that achieving the two-thirds gender principle, as prescribed by the Supreme Law, was a tough ask from the start. Individuals and institutions involved in the constitution-making process over a decade ago argue that realizing this requirement for elective positions may need a different approach. Zainab Ismail has those details.
The adoption of the 2010 Constitution brought with it a radical change in the organization of the country's political institutions. Key among them, provisions for equitable gender representation. Article 27(8) provides that the state shall take legislative and other measures to implement the principle that no more than two-thirds of the members of elective or appointive bodies shall be of the same gender. A decade later, it remains just that, an idea on paper, more so for elective positions.
We've not been able to implement this as envisioned within the Constitution. Why?
Because the architecture was wrong. Once you have an architecture which says you will have women-only seats in 47 counties, then you have 290 constituencies which are gender-neutral, you can then have all the 200 constituencies occupied by one gender.
We had provided for a system similar to what we now have in the counties, whereby parties would provide lists and women would be drawn from those to ensure that we had at least one-third. Now, what happened was that aspect was thrown out completely in Naivasha. The parliamentarians added 80 plus seats that fit the traditional system of first past the post. And so now we ended up with a National Assembly that was bloated. And then this was the one thing they said to us was non-negotiable. We ended up with a constitution that did not have an exact mechanism for ensuring the one-third in the National Assembly.
In 2012, the Supreme Court issued an advisory opinion that the gender principle be realized progressively, setting the 27th of August 2015 as the deadline for the enactment of suitable legislation. But all attempts by Parliament have failed.
So whatever you do, the best thing that you can do is to have the 47 women seats and the nominations. You won't achieve one-third. And that is why we said, and people did not listen to us at that time, don't increase the constituencies. Leave the constituencies at 210. Then the 90 seats be based on a party list, which must be man, woman, man, woman, man, woman, man, woman, man, woman. Immediately you get 45 women. Right. Then you have women representation from the 47 counties. Immediately you have 47 plus 45. Immediately you have 92. Then you have nomination. You've resolved the issue. But on the basis of the present architecture of the Constitution, the provisions dealing with people representation, you cannot achieve it.
But the problem extends beyond Parliament and to President Uhuru Kenyatta's cabinet, among other appointive positions.
What has stopped President Uhuru Kenyatta from appointing 50-50? Women, 50% of women, 50% of men in his cabinet. That's not even a constitutional issue, by the way. It is an administrative issue. It's a leadership issue. President Paul Kagame of Rwanda has surpassed that. Many countries have done it. So sometimes, yes, you could try and be descriptive in a constitution, prescribe what must be done. But it also boils down that who are you entrusting to implement that constitution? So if you are entrusting, say, the implementation of this constitution to someone like President Uhuru, who clearly, with now 2 terms, doesn't believe in the idea of gender, because that's the truth. He doesn't believe in it. What has stopped him from, for example, picking at least 30% of women?
Constitutional lawyers, however, argue that achieving the principle in an environment of cultural defiance may be a tall order, more so under the current constitutional provisions. Zainab Ismail, NTV.